Hello and welcome to InvestorToday.ca. I'm your host, Dave Glover. InvestorToday.ca is brought to you in conjunction with RBL Communications, social media and IR solutions for public companies. For the next few minutes, I'll be joined by Chris Horlacher. Chris Horlacher is the founder and managing director of Maple Leaf Metals Exchange. He possesses a chartered accountant designation and is a former senior auditor for Deloitte & Touche, where he provided audit and assurance services to Fortune 500 companies as well as independent businesses. He left Deloitte to aid Euro-Pacific Canada, a securities dealer, during its startup period by serving as their CFO before founding Maple Leaf Metals. Today we'll be discussing the separation of state and economy, and we'll start with the progressive movement at the turn of the 20th century through the rise of socialism and fascism in the 20s and 40s and giving way to our present political economic state. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Dave.
Oh, it's my pleasure. We just did a recording with Redmond Weisenberger. We were talking about the separation of state and economy, and he took us basically from the beginnings from Marxism and what have you to latter part of the 19th century to the early part of the 20th century. But we kind of left it with us wondering just how difficult it would be for us to try and achieve this separation of state and economy.
Well, with the way things are going right now, it's definitely quite a challenge. But this is the result of an entire century of people being brought up and led to believe that government is a panacea. It's going to solve all of our problems, and if only we can vote the right people in charge of everything, then through their benevolence and proper planning, we'll be able to produce a society without poverty or without crime, and everybody is equally wealthy. But
isn't that sort of the utopian dream, though? Isn't that what everybody wants, Chris?
Well, that's what everybody wants, but that's never, we're unfortunately constrained by the world we live in, and, the big problem here is resources are scarce. They have to be allocated, and then the question becomes, okay, well, which method is the best way to allocate these scarce resources? Because for the moment, we're stuck on a single planet. There's only so many things around that we can use to better our existence. So we need to direct those resources in the most profitable way possible. And I know profit has become a somewhat of a dirty word these days, but that, I think, that stems from the Marxian understanding of profit. And, well, it's really a lack of understanding, really, when you really think about it. It stems from Marx's sort of distortion of an old theory of value, which was, during the classical period by economists like Adam Smith or Ricardo. They subscribed to a theory of value known as the labor theory of value, and that basically that stated that value was inherent in things, and people valued them because there was a certain amount of labor put into making these things. However, before the turn of the century, in the late 1800s, this theory was discredited completely because it failed to ever really explain why exchanges were occurring. Because if everything had some sort of objective value based on the number of hours or minutes of man hours that were put into making certain things, then exchanges technically wouldn't occur, because in every single exchange, if this was the case, then there would always be a winner and a loser in every exchange. But if somebody knew going into it that they were going to receive something that was less valuable than what they were giving up, then they would never voluntarily give up whatever. They would never voluntarily enter into this exchange. So along came Karl Menger, who was he's generally considered to be the father of Austrian economics, and he kicked off what is known as the marginalist revolution. And this was, value is not objective. People are not looking at things that they want and then trying to calculate how many labor hours went into making it and then doing a multiplication. And this is one of the big problems with the labor theory of value.
Mm-hmm.
But with marginalism, values are subjective. They're inherent in the human mind. We value things because of what the amount of utility at the margins an additional unit of this particular good or service will give us.
Mm-hmm.
And so now exchanges make sense. But because each person values the item that the person they're trading with has more than what they have in their own possession.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why voluntary exchanges take place. So profit is derived from the additional benefit that each party in the exchange receives in that transaction. And so what the Marxian explanation of profit is, going back to the labor theory of value, there would be a loser in this exchange, and profit is achieved by one party at the expense of another. And unfortunately, a lot of people still have clung to this false notion of that word, and then so it drives people to sort of oppose the free market, because the free market is a profit-oriented system of organization.
Right.
But because they equate profit with literally inflicting losses on other people, they feel that they need to be opposed to this. But this, of course, is not actually the case. It's not what is happening in the real world.
So this is the argument here, is that my success is based on the failure of someone else, or my ability to circumvent someone else's success in order to make me successful. Is this what you're getting at?
Exactly. And if you talk to people who follow this, they always think that the economy is a zero-sum game, and they'll actually use that term.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not. It's a positive-sum game for everyone, because going back to the theory of exchanges and why people voluntarily exchange stuff, they don't exchange stuff out of the goodness of their hearts. They exchange things because what they're getting in return
That's right.
is going to improve their well-being and their standard of living
Mm-hmm.
more than retaining possession of the particular item that they originally had.
Well, yeah, that's buying low, selling high, or if you get into something at a low price and the price goes way up, obviously you want to profit from that success, so you want to sell out at the higher price.
Yeah. So profit should be celebrated. It shouldn't be regarded as a dirty word. We should all be profit makers and profiteers and looking to enhance our own standard of living in a free market governed by strict property rights.
So this would be the market governing itself then. And this is because we want to get to this idea of a separation of state and economy, right?
Yeah. Now I think with we've touched on we've touched on property rights, and that's what's at the bottom of this issue. And with the separation of state and economy, the state should only have the role of justice, and that is if there's been a violent act committed or a fraud, then the state should concern itself solely with restitution and righting the wrong. And other than that, it shouldn't take any other interest in determining or promoting certain outcomes. It's not there to subsidize. It's not there to regulate. And it's not there to tax and try, because the tax code is used as a social engineering tool for, since it was implemented. The Tax Act in Canada started out at a few dozen pages, and now it's up to about 2,500 pages. And all that, it's not for, it's not, they're not tinkering with the rates. The actual part where they set the tax rates is next to nothing. It's all these rules and credits and different ways of calculating different fees, just layered one on top of the other. Right. That is really the bulk of the Tax Act, and this is all there to patch up a previous tax that they enacted it and then it caused problems. So then instead of rather than repealing that tax, they would implement a tax credit or a rebate or something else.
Right.
So the act just continually expands and expands and expands and expands as they layer on more and more complexity. And now we're stuck with a legislative monstrosity.
Right. Well, it's pretty clear that we're not going to get to the end of this. We got about 10 seconds left on this, and I just want to, obviously we'll have to carry this on. I want to thank you for joining us, Chris, and I guess next month we'll talk about it again.
Absolutely. Be glad to have you on again. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye. And that was Chris Horlacher. Chris Horlacher is the founder of Maple Leaf Metals. I want to thank Chris for joining us, and obviously we'll have to pick this conversation up next time. I want to thank you for tuning in, listeners, and remind you this is InvestorToday.ca, brought to you in conjunction with RBL Communications. We'll see you next time.